Hey guys, tonight we're diving deep into a world that's dark, grimy, and brutally unforgiving. Forget everything you've seen in movies about knights in shining armor and castles filled with feasts, because the Real Middle Ages were anything but glamorous. We're talking about a time of plagues, filth, hunger, and punishments so harsh you wouldn't last a single day without wanting to run back to your comfy modern life. Imagine waking up in the year 1325. Your bed is a rotting pile of straw crawling with fleas. Your home is a one-room wooden hut where you share space with your entire family, your goats, and a parade of insects. The air smells like a barnyard nightmare, and your alarm clock? The church bell tolling loud enough to shake your bones awake. Sounds like a nightmare, right? Well, it's not a story, it's history. And tonight, we're peeling back the romanticized veil to reveal what life really looked like for everyday people back then. You'll see why medieval survival was a daily battle against disease, starvation, dirt, and even your neighbors. So before we jump into this grim and fascinating journey, do me a favor, hit that like button if you're curious to learn the real story behind the myths. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more brutally honest history dives that cut through the fairy tales. Also, drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always incredible to see how far this story travels. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft, steady hum, and get ready to step back in time. Welcome to a day in the Middle Ages. If you survive, it'll be a miracle. Congratulations. You've just survived the night. You've woken up in the year 1325. But surviving the night is only half the battle. Your bed? A half-rotted straw mattress stuffed with bugs, hay, and enough grime to make modern hygiene experts faint. There's no memory foam, no soft pillows, and definitely no Egyptian cotton sheets. Nope. What you have is a lump of soggy straw that smells like it was dragged in straight from the barn floor, which, spoiler alert, it was just 3 months ago. You open your eyes slowly, blinking against the dim light filtering through cracks in your wooden hut's walls. Your home is a one-room wooden shack with no windows. And by no windows I mean zero. No fresh air, no sunshine, just darkness and a faint smell of stale beer, human sweat, and something you pray isn't mold but deep down no probably is. Your bedroom is also the living room, kitchen, and barn, because you share this tiny space with your entire family, the family goat, and enough insects to start a small ecosystem. You try to stretch but immediately regret it. The air is biting cold, it's been leaking through the thatched roof for weeks, and your joints creak like a rickety old wooden door. Your knees sound like a sack of rocks shaken by a confused peasant. You're 22 years old, which in medieval terms is roughly middle-aged. No youth here, just a lifetime of aches, pains, and wear. Your spine feels bent out of shape, your muscles stiff from sleeping on a hard surface. And if you're lucky you woke up at all. Your feet touch the floor, cold, wet, and crusty from whatever your neighbor's chicken left behind last night. There are no slippers. Most people walk barefoot through mud, dung, sharp stones, and puddles of stagnant water filled with who knows what. Your feet are now part of this messy ecosystem. Privacy? Ah, that's a luxury. You and 8 other people, family, distant cousins who never left, and your livestock, all share this one cramped room. No walls to separate, no curtains to shield. Everyone sees and hears everything. Your me time is communal, constant, and usually accompanied by the symphony of coughing, snoring, and the occasional squawk from your hens. Outside, the church bell clangs, the medieval equivalent of a merciless alarm clock. It rings loud enough to shake the dirt off the rafters and jolt you fully awake. This is your cue, time to start a day that's far worse than the night. Because this is only the beginning. Now nature calls. But before you imagine the convenience of a modern bathroom, brace yourself. There are no toilets. No porcelain seats, no flushing systems, no toilet paper, and certainly no hot water to wash your hands. If you're a peasant, your bathroom is likely a wooden bucket tucked behind the hut. That bucket? It's already full because Uncle Wolf Stan had a rough night after eating some bad turnips. The smell is biblical. You hold your breath, do your business, and then the medieval ritual begins. You toss the contents into the street below. Yep, the street. And because it's considered polite, you're supposed to shout, "Garde à l'eau." Old French for "watch out below." To warn anyone walking under your window. The reality? No one moves fast enough. Streets in medieval towns are open sewers, a disgusting river of human waste, animal droppings, and mystery liquids so vile you'd rather not think about them. If you're lucky to live in a town with public latrines, congratulations. You get to sit shoulder to shoulder with strangers in wooden outhouses where privacy is a myth, and ventilation is just a cruel joke. You might make small talk but try not to breathe too deeply. Toilet paper? Never heard of it. People wipe with straw, leaves, rags, moss, or if they're feeling fancy, a scrap of wool. Sometimes nothing at all, which might explain why handshakes weren't popular yet. Castles? You might think it's better, right? Well, sort of. The noble's toilet is often a hole in the wall dropping directly into the moat. Great idea, except enemies sometimes used that as a secret entrance. Talk about an unwelcome backdoor. Whether you're a lowly farmer or a baron, medieval toileting is a humiliation ritual. It's cold, public, dangerous, and never, ever clean. One slip on a wet stone path and you're face first in humanity's leftovers. You survive the toilet ordeal, you deserve a reward. Maybe a nice breakfast? Sorry. This is medieval Europe. Comfort and joy don't exist here. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is a grim affair. You squat near the fire and dig into a wooden bowl of pottage. A thick, gloopy stew made from whatever root vegetables, grains, and beans you can scrounge. The same pot has been simmering for days, maybe weeks, with new ingredients dumped on top of old. It's less cooking, more an ongoing edible experiment. Your bread? Hard as a rock and made from coarse rye or barley flour, often bulked up with sawdust, ground acorns, or other bizarre fillers because wheat is a rich man's fantasy. You don't slice this loaf, you negotiate with it. Drinks? Forget orange juice or coffee. You're drinking weak beer. Yes, beer at 6 a.m. What? Because the water is so filthy and parasite-ridden that brewing boiled it into a safer liquid, just barely. Meat and cheese are dreams for peasants, reserved for Sundays or saints' feast days, and only if the local lord is feeling generous. Fresh fruit only appears seasonally and rarely without being fermented into wine. Spices? Those are for royalty. A pinch of pepper costs more than your monthly wages. So, you chew gritty bread, sip your medieval beer, and try not to think about the rat nibbling your porridge. Clothes? One set, worn every day for months or years. Scratchy wool or rough linen that's never been washed because there's no soap, no washing machine, no dry cleaner. Your tunic is stained, stiff, and smells like a compost heap marinated in a pigsty. If you're lucky to have any, they're made of untreated leather, barely stitched, and offer about as much support as a banana peel. Most peasants go barefoot, stepping over mud, dung, and medieval landmines, sharp rocks and disease puddles. Your skin is a battlefield, crawling with fleas, lice, and bedbugs. Everyone suffers: nobles, monks, children, walking insect farms. Your scalp itches so badly you might as well be scratching with a wooden spoon. Rashes and infections are common, but there's no dermatologist or medicine. You just suffer, and if lucky, the rash will become your unwanted medieval sidekick for 6 months. After dressing in misery and wrapping yourself in discomfort, it's time to work. No office, no coffee breaks, no weekends off. You are a peasant, 90% of the population, laboring on land you don't own for someone else's profit. You rise with the sun and stop when it sets, 6 days a week, or more if the crops demand. Your tools? A wooden hoe, a rusty sickle, and whatever bones remain intact. There's no consideration for fatigue or mental health. Women juggle field work, childcare, cooking, cleaning, and still pretend their husband's lice infestation isn't spreading. Kids as young as 5 work, with no school or toys, just a small rake and a hope to survive the flu. The work is relentless, back-breaking, and unforgiving. Now that you've finished the day's grueling labor, let's talk about the weather, or rather how medieval climate control was basically a punishment from the sky. Winter? There's no central heating, no insulation, and definitely no cozy fireplaces you can just turn on. Your hut's wooden walls are full of gaps big enough to throw a chicken through. Windows? Covered with cloth, not glass, so no warmth, only draft. Your fire, if you're lucky enough to have one, is barely more than dying embers. Wood is expensive and gathering it is often illegal. Yes, you can be executed just for picking up the wrong stick from the wrong forest. You bundle yourself up in a damp, scratchy wool tunic and huddle near the cold hearth, but you still wake up with your nose frozen and your toes numb. Frostbite is just called bad luck. No doctors to treat it, no remedies, just suffering. Fast forward to summer. Sounds better, right? Wrong. In summer, your home transforms into a clay oven with no fans, no ventilation, and no deodorant. You sweat through your layers, but you can't remove them because showing too much skin invites social judgment, sunburn, and insect bites. Flies swarm your unwashed body and the lingering smell of last week's goat stew, still fermenting in the corner. Mosquitoes buzz relentlessly as you try to sleep through the noise of neighbors yelling and babies crying. Outside, the sun bakes the fields, and without sunblock or hats, you're vulnerable to heat stroke, politely called taking a bad turn. Yet the work never stops. You sweat through your only pair of socks, your skin chafing raw, and still you keep digging, planting, pulling weeds. No matter the season, your clothes itch, your food is terrible, and your next back-breaking job is waiting. Feeling thirsty? Want to freshen up with a splash of water on your face? Too bad. Water in the Middle Ages isn't your friend. It's trying to kill you quietly. That crystal clear stream nearby? Someone just dumped a chamber pot upstream. Or maybe a dead pig is decomposing somewhere close. The water teems with parasites, bacteria, and invisible microbial armies waiting for their next victim. That's why everyone drinks beer, even children. But it's small beer, weak in alcohol but boiled, making it safer than the filthy town ditch water. Wine is an option, but only for the rich, and often leads to early drunkenness. Bathing? Forget it. People believed washing opened your pores to disease. Bathing was seen as risky, and public bathhouses quickly became centers of gossip and scandal, so the church shut many down. Even if you wanted to bathe, it was a full production. Hauling water, boiling it over a fire, filling a leaky wooden tub, and praying no one else used it before or after you. Rainwater collected in open barrels, breeding insects and moss. No safe water source, only a gamble with every sip. You're sick. Your cough worsens, your wounds fester, or a fever burns you to the bone. You need a doctor, but there are none. Only barbers with dull blades, leeches, and prayers. Medieval medicine is less healing and more polite torture, rooted in the belief that disease comes from an imbalance of four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Got a fever? Too much blood. Solution: bloodletting. Imagine getting a haircut and a hemoglobin extraction in one painful session. Feeling sad or anxious? That's black bile. The cure? Laxatives, warm herbal purges, or cold compresses, while everyone avoids eye contact and carves your coffin. Broken bones or nasty wounds. Surgery is done without anesthesia, tools heated over fire not to sterilize but to intimidate. No germ theory, no antibiotics. Disease is punishment for sin or bad air. If you survive, it's divine mercy. If you die, well, you were sinful. After surviving work and disease, you finally get to eat. But your meal is likely trying to kill you. No refrigeration means food preservation doesn't exist. Meat, if you're lucky, hangs for days, covered in flies, soaked in questionable brine, and possibly shared with rats. Bread is the diet's cornerstone, but often bulked with bark, sawdust, or even clay during bad harvests. Rye bread sometimes contains ergot, a fungus causing hallucinations, convulsions, and death. Basically, medieval bread was like LSD laced with tetanus. Vegetables only come in season, and turnips are always in season, boiled, mashed, or floating in your mysterious pottage stew. Fruit rots quickly, sugar is rare and hoarded by the rich, and dairy is a gamble loaded with bacteria. Seasonings? Pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg, worth more than gold and out of reach for peasants. Most flavor comes from onions, salt, if you're lucky, and sheer misery. Food isn't nourishment, it's a political and physical risk. Hunting game belongs to the Lord. Poaching can mean fines, prison, or death. So you eat whatever you can, knowing each bite could be your last. Religion isn't just part of life, it is life. The church controls laws, education, birth, marriage, death, and everything in between. You can't read the Bible yourself. It's in Latin, reserved for monks and nobles. You rely on priests to interpret it, and their word is law. Missing Mass? Sin. Eating meat on a Friday? Sin. Thinking naughty thoughts about your neighbor's wife? Double sin. Hell is vividly real. Rivers of fire, lakes of boiling blood, demons with pitchforks, eternal wailing. Tithes, a tenth of everything you own, are mandatory. If you have nothing, you're spiritually and financially doomed. Questioning the church means heresy, which means torture or death. Religion is the spiritual landlord, and you're always behind on rent. If you thought medieval life was rough for men, try being a woman. Your life path is locked from birth. Marry young, bear children, serve your husband, and suffer in silence. Education is a rare privilege for noble women, and most girls stop learning once they can churn butter and patch clothes. Marriage happens early, betrothed at 12, pregnant by 14, not for love but alliances and land. You are your husband's property, expected to produce heirs, manage the household and never complain. Complaining might get you labeled a witch, leading to drowning or burning. Childbirth is a death lottery with no prenatal care, anesthesia or sterile tools. After birth, your workload doubles with cooking, cleaning, nursing and field work. If unmarried, you're suspicious. If widowed, vulnerable. If outspoken, dangerous. Even nuns live under strict rules, always ranked below men. You're expected to endure, obey, reproduce, and suffer, gracefully with a smile. Just when you think life couldn't get any harsher, violence becomes a constant shadow lurking around every corner. The Middle Ages were not peaceful. Law and order were fragile concepts, often meaning you just hoped the local lord was in a good mood that day. Crime was common and punishments were brutal and public, meant to terrify as much as to discipline. Steal a loaf of bread? You might lose a hand. What? Your tongue could be pierced. Gossip too much? Meet the scold's bridle, a metal mask strapped onto your head with a bar in your mouth designed to shut you up. If accused of serious crimes like heresy, theft, or witchcraft, justice was a deadly game of torture and trial by ordeal. One test had you stick your hand into boiling water to retrieve a stone. If your burns healed cleanly in 3 days, you were innocent. If not, guilty, and probably dead. Another trial was drowning. If you sank, you were innocent, but drowned. If you floated, you were guilty and faced execution anyway. It was like a grim medieval game show where survival was the prize, but the odds were stacked against you. Executions were public spectacles. Hangings, beheadings, and burnings drew cheering crowds, complete with snacks, the medieval equivalent of cable TV. Violence wasn't limited to criminals. Domestic violence was normalized. Husbands were expected to discipline wives and children physically. Street fights broke out over minor slights, and even looking the wrong way at a noble's horse could get you beaten. Wars and feuds simmered constantly. Local lords, religious crusades, and territorial disputes meant someone was always marching off to stab someone else in the name of honor, God, or boredom. Violence wasn't a breakdown of society, it was society. Everyone lived knowing life was fragile, justice was arbitrary, and your neighbor might bash your head in over a pig. So you learned to walk carefully, keep your eyes down, and never trust anyone with a club. After enduring lice, leeches, brutal work, and public punishments, your final challenge is almost always the same: an early, unglamorous death. If you manage to breathe past 40, you're practically a celebrity, the old one, which is less a nickname and more a statistical miracle. Life expectancy hovered around 30 to 40 years, dragged down by infant mortality. Nearly half of all children died before age 5. Disease, malnutrition, or a harsh winter could wipe out entire villages. If you survived childhood, you entered adulthood exhausted. By 25, your joints creaked like an ancient monastery door. You might be missing teeth, fingers, and most of your youthful optimism. For women, childbirth was one of the leading causes of death. No prenatal care, no sterile tools, no anesthesia. Midwives did their best, but minor complications often meant death for mother, child, or both. Men faced different dangers: farming accidents, infections from minor wounds, drunken neighbors, and random violence. Even a simple trip to market could end in a bandit attack or a run-in with an angry tax collector. Disease was a constant killer. Plague could turn cities into cemeteries overnight. Famine thinned populations and long seasons of hunger. Or bad luck, like eating spoiled grain, could leave you hallucinating and screaming in your final hours. Funerals, if you got one, were quick and bare bones. No embalming, no polished coffins, just a shallow hole, a few murmured prayers, and a mound of earth if there was room left in the churchyard. You didn't retire. You just stopped showing up. So, how was your day? You woke up in filth, relieved yourself into a bucket, brushed your teeth with wishful thinking, nearly passed out from hunger, worked yourself to the bone, scratched bugs off your skin, prayed to avoid plague, and barely dodged a public execution for owning a squirrel. Welcome to a single day in medieval Europe. Still dreaming of becoming a knight or living in a castle? Think again. That romanticized vision of chivalry, heroic battles, and candlelit feasts? It's a myth polished by fairy tales and fantasy novels. The real medieval world was gritty, cruel, and deeply unfair. Hierarchy ruled. If you were born poor, you stayed poor. If you were born rich, congratulations, you had a slightly better chance of surviving. Even nobles weren't immune to misery. Castles were drafty stone refrigerators filled with fleas and smoke. Political marriages were traps, and the risk of death in battle or from infection was always high. Nothing was simple. Everything took longer. Everything hurt more. From childbirth to chewing your food, consequences were guaranteed. Life wasn't leisure. It was survival, pure and brutal. Yet, despite all this suffering, humans found light in the darkness. People still laughed, sang, told stories, fell in love, and found meaning. Not because life was easy, but because humans are stubborn and resilient. Even in the darkest chapters, they carved out space for joy. So tonight, as you slip into your clean bed with indoor plumbing, antibiotics, and central heating, take a moment to thank the modern world and those ancestors who fought rats, famine, and feudalism, so you wouldn't have to. If you think the Middle Ages were harsh, then meet Sophie, better known to history as Catherine the Great, a woman who rose from obscurity to become one of the most powerful and transformative rulers of Russia. Born Sophie Frederica Augusta von Anhalt-Zerbst in 1729, she was the daughter of a minor German noble family. Her duchy in Pomerania offered little in wealth or influence, but Sophie had something no title could grant: razor-sharp intelligence, relentless charm, and a burning hunger for greatness. Her upbringing was strict and cold. Her mother, Johanna, was a social climber obsessed with status, not warmth. Her father, a Prussian officer, was distant and disciplinary. Sophie learned early how to navigate obedience and cunning, reading voraciously, mastering languages, and learning the art of observing before speaking, skills that would serve her survival in one of Europe's most brutal courts. When Empress Elizabeth of Russia sought a bride for her heir, Grand Duke Peter, Sophie was chosen, a foreign princess, pliable and grateful. At just 14, Sophie was summoned to St. Petersburg, stepping into a world of icy palaces, ruthless politics, and deadly intrigue. To fit in, she converted to Russian Orthodoxy, adopting the name Ekaterina Alexeyevna, Catherine. This public ceremony wasn't just a change of religion. It was a point of no return, burning bridges behind her as she entered an empire that was foreign and unforgiving. Her marriage to Grand Duke Peter was meant to secure her place, but it quickly felt like a cage. Peter was awkward, immature, obsessed with toy soldiers, uninterested in ruling or his new wife. Some say he refused to consummate the marriage for years. He admired Frederick the Great of Prussia and scorned Russian customs. In stark contrast, Catherine embraced Russia with fierce determination. She learned its language, history, and rituals. She wanted to belong while Peter sought to escape. The Russian court was a viper's nest: gossip, paranoia, and power plays. Empress Elizabeth still ruled with iron will but was aging, and everyone knew a transition was coming. Catherine was watched constantly, her letters read, friendships monitored, every move scrutinized. Trust was scarce. Not even her husband was reliable, and her own mother whispered for foreign interests. Yet Catherine was no fool. She learned to play the court's deadly games quietly, building alliances with military officers, scholars, and influential courtiers. Her reputation for dignity and restraint contrasted sharply with Peter's childish tantrums. Behind closed doors, she devoured Enlightenment thinkers, Voltaire, Montesquieu, building a vision not just for herself but for Russia: strength, education, reason. But there was a problem. Peter's survival meant Catherine's power was limited. The throne wouldn't be inherited, it had to be taken. In 1762, after nearly 2 decades of waiting and scheming, Catherine saw her moment. Empress Elizabeth had died. Peter, now Tsar Peter III, was on the throne, but his reign unraveled immediately. He alienated the church, offended nobles, insulted the army, and openly discussed divorcing Catherine for his mistress. The court turned cold, the army grumbled, and the people saw him as a foreign puppet mocking their traditions. Catherine acted decisively. Supported by loyal military officers, including her lover Gregory Orloff, she launched a bloodless coup. Riding through St. Petersburg in full regalia, she was proclaimed Empress Catherine II. Peter, caught off guard and isolated, surrendered within days. Shortly after, he died under mysterious circumstances, officially hemorrhoidal colic, unofficially murder. Catherine was empress, not by birth, not by marriage, but by will, wit, and audacity. Her ascent was unprecedented. A foreign-born woman with no legitimate claims seized the Russian throne without a single battle. But taking power was only the beginning. Catherine had to transform a bold coup into lasting rule. Would Russia accept her? Could the nobility respect a woman who wasn't born to rule? Could she hold together a vast, fractious empire without falling victim to the same fate as her husband? She knew power gained through intrigue could vanish just as fast. So she ruled not as a schemer but as a visionary. Imagine for a moment, the world through the eyes of a medieval peasant waking at dawn. The air is thick with the damp cold of night, your bones stiff from sleeping on a bed that feels more like a pile of straw and bugs than anything resembling comfort. You rise not to a day of leisure or choice but to relentless labor. The only light filtering through your hut's cracks barely warms the chill that clings to your skin. Outside, the village stirs to life amid the stench of open sewers and livestock, a cacophony of clucking chickens, braying donkeys, and distant church bells calling you to work and worship alike. You dress in the same threadbare clothes you've worn for months, your feet bare against the muddy ground, and step into a world where every breath could carry disease, every misstep could mean injury, and every encounter might bring punishment or worse. Yet, within this harsh existence, there is resilience. Families bound by shared hardship, traditions passed down through whispered stories, moments of laughter in the face of despair. This daily struggle was the reality for millions, a life where survival was a triumph of spirit as much as of body. She embraced Enlightenment ideals: reason, progress, education. She corresponded for 15 years with Voltaire, defending her autocracy while flattering the philosopher. Catherine launched efforts to codify Russian law, abolish torture, expand secular education, and build schools and libraries. Yet, she also reaffirmed the nobility's control over their serfs, a balancing act between reform and survival. Her reign was a tightrope walk between idealism and political reality. Catherine didn't just seize power, she reshaped Russia's destiny. Under her leadership, the empire's borders expanded wider than ever before, transforming Russia from a distant, backward cousin of Europe into a continental powerhouse. Her military campaigns were relentless and strategic. Against the Ottoman Empire, she waged multiple wars throughout the 1760s and 1770s. These conflicts weren't just about territory, they were about influence, religion, and power. Catherine cast herself as the liberator of Orthodox Christians under Muslim rule and the rightful protector of Eastern Europe. Her generals, like Alexander Suvorov and Gregory Potemkin, captured key regions: Crimea, the northern Black Sea coast, securing warm water ports Russia had coveted for centuries. These victories sent a message: Russia was no longer peripheral, it was a major European player demanding respect and fear. Westward, Catherine was a shrewd diplomat. She played a central role in the partitions of Poland, carving up the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth with Austria and Prussia. By 1795, Poland was erased from the map, millions of new subjects and vast lands absorbed into the Russian Empire. But Catherine's conquests weren't only military. She colonized with ideas. She invited German settlers to cultivate Russian farmland, expanding agriculture and modernizing rural areas. New cities sprouted, trade routes widened, and the empire became a mosaic stretching from the icy Baltic to the sun-drenched Black Sea shores. Despite all this, Catherine remained at the empire's center. She read reports, issued orders, and personally shaped her growing realm. Critics called her power-hungry and imperialistic. But for Catherine, expansion was destiny. A great ruler was measured by borders, not just ideas. She didn't just want to rule Russia. She wanted to remake it as a civilized empire, feared by enemies, respected by peers, and loyal to her alone. Catherine's public reign was dazzling, but behind palace doors, her private life became one of the most talked-about stories of her time. She had many lovers, not just a few but a carefully chosen parade, often decades younger, handsome, politically influential. She openly rewarded loyal lovers with titles, estates, and pensions. Those who fell out of favor were dismissed politely, often with generous retirements. One of her most important partners was Gregory Potemkin, a brilliant and bold statesman. Their relationship blurred the lines between romance, politics, and partnership. Some historians even suggest they secretly married. Together, they shaped military campaigns, colonization projects, and transformed southern Russia. Potemkin wasn't just a lover, he was her co-ruler in many ways. But gossip and scandal swirled relentlessly. Satirical pamphlets painted her as lustful, insatiable, and unhinged. Enemies spread grotesque rumors, the most infamous involving a horse, a completely false story designed to tarnish her legacy. Why such obsession? Because Catherine wielded power unapologetically in a world where female rulers were expected to be saintly virgins or tragic figures. She refused to play the role. She lived, loved, and ruled on her own terms, and that made her dangerous. Ironically, while critics labeled her immoral, Catherine was deeply philosophical about love and sexuality. She believed pleasure was natural and personal relationships didn't have to threaten public responsibility. She separated emotion from governance, a feat few male rulers managed. Her lovers were strategic allies, loyal and capable, discarded when no longer useful. Her love life didn't weaken her rule, it was part of her strategy, a blend of passion and power that made her unforgettable and feared. But Catherine's reign was not without peril. In 1773 the empire faced its greatest internal threat, the Pugachev Rebellion. Led by a bearded Cossack named Yemelian Pugachev, it was the largest peasant uprising in Russian history. Pugachev claimed to be Peter III, Catherine's dead husband, returned to reclaim the throne. Though absurd, his claim ignited hope among oppressed peasants, serfs, and old believers. He promised liberation, an end to serfdom, lower taxes, and land for the common people. His words spread like wildfire along the Volga River region, rallying tens of thousands to his cause. Towns fell, fortresses surrendered, nobles were slaughtered. For a terrifying moment, the empire itself seemed on the brink of collapse. Catherine was shaken but did not panic. She dispatched professional armies to crush the rebellion with ruthless efficiency. Pugachev was captured, displayed in an iron cage and beheaded publicly, a stark warning to all. The uprising forced Catherine to reconsider her reforms. The dream of liberating serfs quietly faded as she doubled down on noble privileges to secure loyalty. Surveillance increased, dissent was crushed, and rebellion whispered was stomped out before breathing. Pugachev's defeat came with a harsh lesson. Power built on inequality could only hold for so long before the storm broke. By the end of her reign in 1796, Catherine the Great had ruled Russia for over 3 decades, longer than any other female ruler in its history. She defied expectations, expanded borders by over 200,000 square miles, and firmly placed Russia on the European cultural map. Her court became a center of art, science, and intellectual ambition. She helped found the Hermitage Museum, amassed one of Europe's greatest art collections, and corresponded with Enlightenment thinkers worldwide. She modernized education, founded schools for girls, and championed scientific progress, including smallpox inoculation. Yet, her reign was full of contradictions. While a reformer on the surface, she never freed the serfs. In fact, serfdom expanded deeper into Russia. Her policies polished the empire without uprooting its feudal foundations. Catherine ruled not by divine right but through will, intelligence, and political brilliance. She was called many things: tyrant, reformer, seductress, but above all she was effective. When she died, Russia was wealthier, larger, and more formidable than it had been in centuries. She left behind a throne secure, an empire expanded, and a legend that still fascinates today. Beyond the grandeur and statecraft, Catherine was deeply human. She was aware of her precarious position, a foreigner, a woman, a usurper in a male-dominated world. She was lonely, guarded, and sometimes isolated. Her son Paul, whom she distrusted, threatened to undo her legacy. Her greatest emotional partnership with Potemkin ended in friendship but left a lasting wound. She crafted her public image carefully: mother of Russia, enlightened monarch, warrior, lover of the arts. But beneath it all was a woman who endured rejection, betrayal, scandal, and rebellion, and kept going. As Catherine approached the final years of her reign, she stood as a towering figure in Russian and European history. Her influence stretched across continents, borders, and cultures. Yet behind the imperial portraits and state decrees, Catherine remained acutely aware of her fragile position. A woman who had climbed to power through sheer will in a world that expected her to fail. Her daily life was intense and demanding. Long hours were spent reading diplomatic reports, responding to correspondence from foreign powers, and meticulously editing state papers. Her court was a hive of rival factions, where alliances could shift overnight. Trust was a rare commodity. Her inner circle was guarded and carefully curated. Her relationship with her son Paul was complicated and tense. Distrustful of his ambitions and temperament, Catherine kept him at arm's length from governance, fearing he might undo her reforms and destabilize the empire. The mother-son dynamic was fraught with political intrigue and personal sorrow. Her great emotional partnership with Gregory Potemkin, which had been the foundation of much of her political power and personal happiness, gradually faded into a deep friendship. His death in 1791 left an unhealed wound in her life, a loss that no amount of imperial grandeur could fill. Despite these challenges, Catherine was relentless. She crafted her image as the enlightened monarch, a patron of the arts, a lover of philosophy, and a warrior empress. But she was also pragmatic, understanding that power was to be wielded firmly and wisely. When she died in 1796, she left behind a Russia transformed, larger, wealthier, and culturally vibrant. Her legacy was a complex tapestry of reform and repression, enlightenment and empire, intellect and intrigue. She didn't just wear the crown, she rewrote what it meant to deserve it. Now, let's journey far away from the icy courts of Russia to the steamy jungles of ancient Mesoamerica. Deep in the Chiapas jungle of southern Mexico, the ruins of Palenque whisper secrets of a lost world, towering temples eroded by time, but still brimming with mystery. In 1994, a remarkable discovery unveiled one of the most haunting archaeological finds of the modern era: the tomb of the Red Queen. Located beneath Temple 13, next to the famous Temple of the Inscriptions, the burial site of the mighty King Pacal the Great, this sealed chamber had remained untouched for over a millennium. Inside lay the skeleton of a woman, wrapped in a cloud of brilliant red powder, powdered cinnabar, a toxic mercury sulfide used ceremonially by the Maya. Her bones were fragile but intact, her skull adorned with a delicate jade mask, surrounded by precious offerings crafted from jade, shell, and obsidian. The richness of the burial screamed royalty, yet no name was inscribed. No glyphs identified her. Who was she? Was she a queen, a priestess, a royal mother, or perhaps Pacal's wife? The researchers called her the Red Queen, a fitting name for a figure cloaked in mystery and ritual. The most striking feature of the tomb was the thick layer of powdered cinnabar covering everything: the sarcophagus, walls, bones, and offerings. To the Maya, red was sacred. It symbolized blood, rebirth, and the vital life force connecting humans to the divine. The use of cinnabar was both spiritual and symbolic, a ritual to transform the deceased not merely into a corpse, but into a divine being crossing into the afterlife. The Red Queen's burial wasn't an accident or oversight. It was intentional, a sacred passage marked by ceremony and color. But cinnabar is also deadly. Exposure leads to mercury poisoning, tremors, hallucinations, and death. Though the Maya did not understand the chemistry, they revered its power and danger. To bathe the dead in cinnabar was to declare that person no ordinary mortal but someone set apart for transformation and deification. The Red Queen's tomb was unlike most Maya burials. No gold, no chariots, no lavish displays, just carefully chosen ritual objects meant to accompany her through the perilous journey of the underworld, known as Xibalba. Her jade mask was exquisite, composed of tiny mosaic tiles that perfectly mimicked her skull's contours. Jade, precious and sacred to the Maya, symbolized eternal life and divine vitality. The mask was not mere decoration. It protected the soul and preserved identity, presenting her as divine in the eyes of the gods. Surrounding her remains were bone needles, obsidian blades, and ceramic vessels, tools and offerings vital for navigating the afterlife's challenges. DNA analysis revealed no direct maternal link to Pakel the Great, sparking theories. Was she his wife? His mother, Sakkuk? A high priestess? A powerful royal ancestor? No definitive answer exists. Her identity lost to time, but her importance immortalized in ritual and symbol. To understand the Red Queen, we must understand Maya society, where women, especially royal women, wielded significant influence. Royal women were not mere consorts but diplomats, priestesses, power brokers. They conducted major ceremonies, engaged in warfare diplomacy, and sometimes ruled outright. Figures like Sakkuk, mother of Pakel, ruled as queen regent with real authority. Women were often portrayed in elaborate regalia, carved in stone glyphs, and depicted as equals or even superiors to kings. Their bloodlines were political capital, securing dynastic alliances and claims. While colonial narratives later erased much of their legacy, archaeology reveals a complex gender dynamic where power was negotiated, not just inherited. The Red Queen stands as a testament to this legacy. A woman who ruled, remembered not in words but in scarlet and silence. To truly grasp the significance of the Red Queen's burial, we must delve into the rich tapestry of Maya cosmology, a worldview where life, death, and the cosmos are intricately intertwined. For the ancient Maya, death was not an end but a passage, a transformation from the earthly realm into the mysterious underworld known as Xibalba. This underworld was a complex, layered realm filled with dangers, trials, and deities of death and disease. It was far from peaceful, a dark maze of rivers of blood, jaguars, and gods who tested the souls of the departed. Only those who were ritually prepared, spiritually equipped, and properly buried could hope to navigate this treacherous journey successfully. The Red Queen's tomb was more than a final resting place. It was a carefully constructed gateway to eternity. Its architecture, aligned east to west, symbolized the sun's daily journey from life to death, reinforcing the idea of cyclical transformation. Her limestone sarcophagus sat at the heart of the sealed chamber, designed as a sacred enclosure for someone of immense reverence. The sparing but deliberate choice of objects around her, jade, obsidian, bone tools, and sealed ceramic vessels, were not mere funerary luxury but essential aids for the soul's journey. These offerings provided sustenance, protection, and spiritual power needed to face the trials of Xibalba. The pervasive presence of cinnabar, the vibrant red mercury sulfide powder, in the tomb speaks volumes about Maya ritual and belief. Red was the color of blood, sacrifice, rebirth, and divine energy. By covering the Red Queen's body and chamber in cinnabar, the Maya were not only honoring her status but also imbuing her with the life force necessary to transcend mortal limits. This sacred powder was both a symbol and a powerful ritual tool, believed to cleanse, protect, and empower the deceased on their voyage to the afterlife. The toxicity of cinnabar, unknown to the Maya in chemical terms, paradoxically underscored its potency and sacredness. It was a substance both revered and feared, a fitting medium for transforming a mortal woman into a divine presence. Central to the Red Queen's burial was her jade mosaic mask, a masterpiece of artistry and symbolism. Unlike the ostentatious gold death masks of Egypt, her mask was subtle and intricate, crafted from dozens of tiny tiles to mirror the contours of her skull perfectly. Jade was a sacred stone in Maya culture, emblematic of eternal life, vitality, and divine favor. Its deep green hues represented the breath of the gods and the fertile jungle that sustained Maya civilization. By placing the mask over her face, the Maya protected her identity and soul, presenting her not as a mortal but as an eternal divine figure. The accompanying jade jewelry, necklaces, wristbands, and ear spools, further reinforced her elevated status and spiritual power. These were not mere ornaments but powerful symbols and spiritual tools affirming her connection to the gods and her role in sustaining dynastic legitimacy. Scattered around the tomb were bone needles, obsidian blades, and ceramic vessels, each laden with ritual meaning. Obsidian, sharp and reflective, was often associated with cutting through spiritual barriers and warding off malevolent forces. Bone tools could have been implements for ritual healing or symbolic items representing lineage and continuity. The ceramic vessels, still sealed, likely contained offerings, food, drink, or incense, intended to nourish and appease the spirit during its perilous journey. These objects illustrate how Maya death rituals were holistic, engaging both the physical and metaphysical worlds to ensure the safe passage of the soul. Despite the richness of her burial, the Red Queen remains a mystery. Her name and exact identity are lost to time, an intentional silence perhaps, reflecting Maya cosmological beliefs that memory and power transcend written words. Some scholars propose she was Zakbuee, wife of Pakal the Great, a woman of noble birth and political influence who bore sons who ruled after Pakal. Others suggest she may have been Sak-Kuk, Pakal's mother and regent, a powerful ruler in her own right. Still others hypothesize she could have been a high priestess or royal matriarch whose name was deliberately erased or forgotten. DNA tests have been inconclusive, revealing no direct maternal link to Pakal but not ruling out spousal or other close relationships. What remains clear is that her burial proximity to Pakal's grand tomb, the shared use of cinnabar, and the richness of her funerary goods mark her as a figure of extraordinary power. To understand the Red Queen's role, one must appreciate the complex dynamics of gender and power in Maya society. Unlike many ancient cultures, Maya women, especially of the elite class, wielded considerable influence. They were diplomats, priestesses, warriors, and sometimes rulers. Maya inscriptions and murals portray women adorned in elaborate regalia, participating in major ceremonies, and acting as equals or even superiors to kings. Women's bloodlines were political capital, essential for forging alliances and legitimizing claims to the throne. Figures like Sak-Kuk, who governed as queen regent until Pakal came of age, exemplify female authority in Maya politics. These women were not passive consorts but active agents shaping dynastic legacy and spiritual life. The Red Queen, enveloped in ritual and symbolism, stands as a testament to this nuanced power, a woman remembered not by name but by sacred ritual and enduring presence. To the ancient Maya, death was not a cessation but a transformation, a complex journey through a perilous and mystifying underworld called Xibalba. Unlike the tranquil visions of the afterlife in many other cultures, Xibalba was depicted as a labyrinthine realm, filled with darkness, treacherous rivers, and fearsome gods of death, disease, and decay. It was a place of trials and torment, where souls faced challenges testing their worthiness and resolve. Only those properly prepared through ritual and spiritual guidance could hope to emerge victorious and continue their existence in the divine cosmos. The Red Queen's tomb was not simply a burial chamber but a sacred passageway designed to ensure her safe passage through this dangerous spiritual landscape. Her placement beneath Temple 13, alongside the more famous Temple of the Inscriptions, the resting place of Pakal the Great, was a deliberate positioning linking her journey with one of the greatest rulers of Palenque. The east-to-west alignment of the tomb echoed the sun's daily path, symbolizing the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth central to Maya cosmology. The thick layer of powdered cinnabar saturating the tomb was a profound ritual act. Cinnabar's vibrant red hue symbolized blood, the essence of life, sacrifice, and regeneration. By enveloping her remains and surroundings in this sacred powder, the Maya were affirming the Red Queen's transition from mortal to divine, human to godlike. This ritual transformation was not only spiritual but political, reinforcing her status and authority even in death. The toxicity of cinnabar, unknowingly fatal, underscored its powerful role as a boundary between worlds, a substance both protective and dangerous. This duality echoed the Maya belief in the liminal nature of death, a threshold fraught with peril yet pregnant with potential for rebirth. The Red Queen's jade mosaic mask was more than a funerary adornment. Jade, prized for its enduring beauty and sacred associations, symbolized eternal life and divine favor. The mask's intricate construction from countless tiny tiles, perfectly shaped to fit her skull, signified an artistic and spiritual mastery. It preserved her identity, shielding her essence as she journeyed through Xibalba. In Maya belief, the mask functioned as a spiritual armor, a safeguard ensuring the deceased's recognition and respect by gods and ancestors alike. The accompanying jade jewelry further marked her elevated status, embodying vitality and authority that transcended death. The discovery of the Red Queen's tomb has reshaped understanding of Maya burial practices and gender dynamics. Unlike many elite burials focused on kingship, her tomb emphasized ritual purity, symbolic transformation, and the centrality of women in dynastic continuity. The rich offerings and meticulous burial rites illustrate the complexity of Maya beliefs surrounding death and the afterlife. The chamber's pristine condition, untouched by looters, provides a rare and invaluable glimpse into ancient ceremonial life. Each artifact, from bone needles to obsidian blades, adds layers of meaning, reflecting a worldview where physical and spiritual realms intertwined. Despite advanced forensic analysis, the Red Queen's true identity remains elusive. DNA studies have yet to conclusively link her to Pakal the Great or other known royal figures. This ambiguity fuels ongoing debate and fascination. Was she a queen consort, a regent, a priestess, or a symbolic matriarch? Her anonymity may have been intentional, a ritual erasure emphasizing spiritual transcendence over mortal names. In Maya culture, remembrance was preserved not only through inscriptions but through ceremony, symbolism, and the earth itself. The Red Queen's legacy, enshrined in scarlet cinnabar and sacred jade, endures as a powerful testament to women's pivotal role in ancient Maya society. The Red Queen's story bridges millennia, connecting modern discovery with ancient belief. Her tomb invites us to reconsider assumptions about power, gender, and spirituality in pre-Columbian America. It challenges narratives that diminish women's roles, highlighting a sophisticated society where ritual, politics, and gender intersected in profound ways. As we unearth these secrets, we not only honor the past but enrich our understanding of human complexity. Her silent presence beneath the jungle canopy speaks across time, reminding us that history is layered, symbolic, and often mysterious. History often feels like a collection of dates, names, and events, but beneath those facts lie the raw, complex realities of human lives. Lives shaped by circumstance, courage, suffering, and aspiration. When we look closely at the medieval peasant waking to the cold bite of dawn or the Maya queen wrapped in sacred red powder, we glimpse more than the past. We touch the eternal human condition. These were people who faced uncertainty each day, whose breaths and heartbeats were intertwined with forces far beyond their control. They endured hunger that gnawed deep into their bones, cold that seeped into marrow, and fears both earthly and spiritual. Yet, despite the weight of hardship, they found ways to laugh, to love, and to build meaning within their limited worlds. Their stories challenge our modern notions of progress and comfort, urging us to appreciate the layers of resilience and adaptation that sustain humanity. The medieval peasant's life was often invisible in grand histories, yet these ordinary people formed the backbone of society. Their sweat irrigated the fields that fed kings and nobles, their labor kept markets alive, and their faith sustained cultural continuity. They endured brutal punishments, overwhelming toil, and the constant shadow of death not as abstract notions but as lived realities. Yet within villages and homes, there were moments of community, shared meals, festivals tied to the rhythms of the land, and the passing of stories from one generation to the next. These human connections formed the threads of belonging and hope, quiet revolutions of spirit amid daily suffering. Similarly, the Red Queen of Palenque invites us to reflect on a civilization whose worldview was intricately spiritual and deeply political. Her tomb is a profound statement of identity, power, and transformation, revealing a society that honored the sacred in death as much as in life. The rich symbolism enveloping her, the cinnabar red, the jade mask, the carefully chosen offerings, speaks of a belief system where death was a threshold, not a void. It reminds us that human beings have always sought ways to transcend mortality, to secure continuity beyond physical existence through ritual, memory, and myth. The Maya mastery of art, architecture, and astronomy intertwined with their spiritual practices creates a window into a sophisticated culture that celebrated complexity and embraced mystery. Both histories, one of survival and hardship, the other of ritualized transcendence, underscore how power operates on multiple levels: political, spiritual, social, and personal. Catherine the Great's rise from a foreign princess to a powerful empress illustrates how ambition, intelligence, and adaptability can rewrite destinies, even in patriarchal societies designed to exclude women. Her story is not just about conquest and governance but about navigating the delicate balance between personal desire and public duty, between Enlightenment ideals and the realities of empire. In this light, history becomes a story of negotiation, between individual agency and structural forces, between continuity and change. When we engage deeply with these pasts, we also confront our present. We see echoes of ancient struggles in today's world: inequalities that persist, the interplay of culture and power, the human desire for meaning amid chaos. These reflections challenge us to honor the dignity of all lives, especially those often overlooked or forgotten. They call us to listen to the silences, to read the spaces between inscriptions, and to value stories carried not only in texts but in artifacts, rituals, and oral traditions. Ultimately, these narratives invite us to expand our empathy across time and space, recognizing that the pulse of humanity beats beneath the surface of history's grand events. They remind us that behind every monument and every dusty page lie real lives, complex emotions, and enduring hopes. By bridging the worlds of a medieval peasant, a Maya queen, and a Russian empress, we enrich our understanding of what it means to be human: resilient, creative, vulnerable, and eternally striving. And in honoring these stories, we also honor our own, weaving ourselves into the vast tapestry of human experience. From the grimy huts of medieval Europe to the sacred tomb beneath the Maya jungle, we've journeyed through vastly different worlds, yet witnessed strikingly similar truths about human existence. In medieval Europe, life was a daily struggle against filth, hunger, disease, and brutality. Survival demanded resilience in the face of relentless hardship, a world where even the simplest comforts were luxuries and death was ever present. Yet within this unforgiving landscape, people clung to hope, community, and belief. Across the ocean and centuries earlier, the Maya civilization revered death as transformation, embedding it deeply into their spiritual and political life. The Red Queen's tomb reveals a culture where ritual, symbolism, and the power of women shaped dynasties and connected the earthly to the divine. Her story challenges us to see beyond names and dates, to the eternal human quest for meaning and legacy. Both narratives remind us that history is not just a record of kings and battles, but a complex tapestry of human endurance, belief, and identity. They invite us to reflect on how far we have come, to appreciate the comforts and freedoms we often take for granted, and to honor the courage and wisdom of those who came before us. As you step back from these stories, the grit of medieval survival and the sacred mystery of the Maya Red Queen, consider this. What parts of their worlds resonate today? How do survival, power, and legacy shape our lives now? If these journeys through time have sparked your curiosity or touched something deeper, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Tell me, which story moved you more? The harsh reality of a day in medieval Europe or the enigmatic ritual of the Maya Queen? Your engagement keeps history alive and makes these ancient voices heard once again. Thank you for joining me on this incredible voyage through time and culture. Until next time, keep exploring, questioning, and remembering, because every story deserves to be told. Before you go, here's something to ponder. History often feels distant, like stories locked away in dusty books or old museums. But the truth is, those lives we just explored, the medieval peasants struggling with survival, the Maya queen enshrouded in sacred ritual, and the indomitable Catherine the Great, each of them left traces that still ripple through time. Their choices, their struggles, their legacies shape who we are today in ways we sometimes overlook. Think about the resilience of those medieval villagers, who faced unimaginable hardships yet kept their communities alive. Or the profound spirituality behind the Red Queen's burial, reminding us how humans across cultures have sought meaning in life's greatest mystery, death. Anne Catherine's story, a testament to the power of intellect, ambition, and adaptability, shows us how one person's will can change the course of history. So next time you read about a king or queen or study ancient ruins, remember the untold stories behind them, the forgotten faces, the everyday lives, the myths and rituals that gave their worlds meaning. History isn't just about rulers or battles. It's about people, their hopes, fears, and dreams. If you want, stick around for a moment longer. We'll be diving into some fascinating questions from the community and unpacking some surprising facts that didn't make the main cut.